Good evening. We'll go ahead and get started this evening. I'm not going to use a microphone. Can everyone hear me okay? And if at any time I start talking softer, lighter, let me know, and I'll be sure to get my teacher voice back in full strength here. I want to thank you for coming out this evening. It's a good turnout. I'm Steve Teeters, Superintendent at DeKalb Central Schools. It's really nice to see a lot of familiar faces. This is my 25th year here in the district, and I spent 5 great years here at Watson Elementary as a principal until about 3 years ago. So just to tell you a little bit more about my background and who I am, if you don't know me already. Started in the district in 1992 as a social studies teacher at DeKalb Middle School. Taught for about 9 years, had the opportunity to become the assistant principal and athletic director at DeKalb Middle School for about another 8 or 9 years. In 2009, I was very fortunate, very privileged to become the principal here at Watson Elementary for 5 years. And then 3 years ago, our former superintendent, Dr. Gray, once again, I had the privilege and the honor to go to central office as the assistant superintendent. And now, the greatest honor of all, superintendent here at DeKalb Central Schools. So that tells you a little bit about me and my background. And again, the familiar faces I love to see. Also familiar faces from our first 2 community meetings. And I just want to briefly comment, last Monday, we had our first community meeting at Country Meadow, which went, I thought, very well. Had great feedback, excellent questions, great comments. Last Wednesday then, we had our second meeting at Waterloo. I see familiar faces from people from those other meetings as well. So it's kind of nice to have others come along from those first meetings because there are different questions, there are different topics, concerns. Depending on which school you're talking to or what community you're talking to, there are different levels of concern or questions that come to mind, and it's just good to be a part of that. These community meetings are videotaped, and they are also located on the website online, so that if you, I'm not sure why you want to, but if you want to go back and relive the meeting and listen to me talk for an hour, you know, that's just a lot of fun in that, I'm sure. But you can get a sense for the other meetings at Waterloo, Country Meadow. Wednesday night, we're at McKinney-Harrison for our final stop. And then we'll have to reassess after these 4 meetings to determine if we need to get back together again. And so we really haven't made a decision on if that would be necessary. But we may need to come back together again and offer some additional opportunities to meet with you once again. So stay tuned for that. I will reference that on the website. You can go to the district website, DeKalbCentral.net, or you can go to any one of the elementary schools' websites. And on the top of the website, on the home page, the landing page, you can click on the redistricting information. That will take you to a site that has all the information that we have available at this time regarding this process. The maps, we put some higher resolution maps on the websites. The ones that we put on initially from the demographer were not high resolution. They were extremely difficult to make out, especially when we started to zoom in. They're better. They're not as good as I'd like to see them be, but they are better. You can actually see street names, and more thorough boundary lines. There's some cleaning up that I think would have to be done, depending on what version might be chosen. And again, those maps are purely a starting point in this process. All right, it gets the conversation started. It allows for valuable feedback from our community members. So we put everything there. We've updated our frequently asked questions, as you can imagine. We've had a lot of questions that maybe we didn't think about or we didn't add to our FAQ. So from our first 2 meetings with all of those different community members that were in attendance, and staff members, and grandparents, and family friends, child care providers, you name it, we've been able to update those FAQs. We still have more updating to do. And we know from this meeting tonight, and from Wednesday's meeting, we're going to have to go back and update that information once again. So I would encourage you, if you haven't visited the website, try to take the opportunity to do so. And if you have, you'll want to keep checking back. I think you'll find that there's useful information. On the website, there's also a link that you can provide feedback through a Google form, and that feedback will come directly to me. And that's been very powerful to get the feedback in that capacity. On our websites, we also have what's called a tip line, and that's located on any one of our websites, and we've added a category on our tip line. Typically, we've had, for our tip line, categories of you can report someone who's done something great for your child in the school, or a bullying issue that's happening in the school. So different ways that you can let us know, anonymously or not, different types of things to keep us apprised of. So we've added a redistricting tab to the tip line. That's another way that you can provide feedback for us. So just wanted to start the meeting, kind of give you a preview, who I am, where you can find the information. I want to introduce some other members of the district who are here tonight. And like the meetings we've had before, when the meeting concludes and you may have a question that you may not want to address to the group, but you want to talk to me, or you want to talk to one of my team members, or a school board member, those individuals are here for you. So after the meeting, if you want to stick around and have a one-on-one conversation, or if you want to schedule a one-on-one meeting or something with me at another time, we can certainly do that. So I want to introduce, we have, I believe, 2 school board members here with us tonight. Our school board president is Bruce Buttermore. Bruce is giving the way. So Bruce is here with us, and Heather Krebs is also here, member of our school board. Members of our team, a big thanks to Mrs. Shoemaker, principal here at J.R. Watson, helping us get everything set up here and making sure that we have a nice environment to have a discussion and listen to what you might have to say. Along the row there, I'm not sure, up against the wall, they're in trouble. I don't know. Mrs. Tipton, our director of curriculum and instruction, and she was principal at McKinney Harrison Elementary a few years back. Some of you might remember Mrs. Tipton. She was at McKinney. Miss Lori Vaughn is our new assistant superintendent. So when I stepped up to the superintendency, Miss Vaughn stepped into the role as assistant superintendent. So she's been a wonderful addition to DeKalb Central School. We're excited she's here. Mr. Wanda is our principal at Waterloo Elementary. Mr. Steve Snyder is our chief financial officer. He's our money guy. He keeps me in check. That's a good thing. Mrs. Pettis is here. She's our director of community services. Mrs. Alday is here. She's the principal of McKinney Harrison Elementary. And standing in the back, Mr. Minor, Country Meadow principal. So any one of these individuals all have a lot of knowledge in a lot of different areas. So depending on the school, depending on what they do in their role and responsibilities are available to you. So I hope that you take the time, if you're able to, and have some questions that you'd like to ask, or some additional information that you need individually, that you're able to do that. All right? So let's go ahead and get started. And if you could, if you have questions, I know some of you have burning questions or things you want additional clarification on, if you could hold those to the end, and then we'll exhaust everything that we need to, all the time that we need to address any questions or concerns. If I don't know the answer to something, or if I can't clarify it to you, I'll let you know that right now. I'm not going to make things up as I go. We've had 2 really good meetings. We've had a lot of good questions, I think. Those of you who have been there, I think you testified to that. But I know we're going to have other questions in this meeting as well. Kind of far away, so you got to test your eye strength. But this presentation is located online, so you can go back and revisit this as well. A lot of people want to know the reason why, or the purpose. Why are you rocking my world, right? Why are you potentially doing something that I don't want to do, I don't want my kids to do, I don't want any part of it, just leave me alone, let me continue what we're doing. We love our school, we love our teachers, we love our principal, and quite honestly, I understand all of that, I appreciate that. And certainly on my bucket list as superintendent, year one in, no one would ever put redistricting as a superintendent as something that you would strive or want to do. It's nothing that you look to do as a superintendent or as a district, but it's something that you have to consider to do once you look at our current situation as a district and why we've gotten to this point. I'm going to reflect back to 2009. This chart, even if you can't read the years, the chart should be pretty easy to understand. This is our student enrollment since 2009. From 2009 until the fall of 2016, we're down 427 students. Now, that probably doesn't mean much to you because you're interested in one child and that's your own, or two children, if that's how I get that. In the realm of education and how we're funded through the state, it is about students. It's about the number of students and dollars that are connected. I think I've asked Mr. Snyder this question. I think I got this one on my own tonight. Each student represents about $6,800 from the state through general funding to ensure that we can properly educate each and every child. So, 2009, the recession, we lost a lot of manufacturing, a lot of jobs in general, we lost a lot of our families. All right, that helps to at least lay the foundation for you to understand. We've gone through a lot of cuts over the last several years, and with that, it's created an imbalance in our elementary schools. And you may only be familiar with the one school that you're currently attending. Maybe you have knowledge of the other 3 elementary schools to some level. Well, let us go ahead. This is Shoemaker. The current boundary maps, you have a copy of that in your hands. You have 2 maps in your, there are actually 3 maps in your hand. One's a single-sided and one is a 2-sided. The single-sided map is the current attendance zones for the 4 elementaries that we have in the district. So, if you're only familiar with your school, quickly, the blue area, the northern part of our district is Country Meadow Elementary School. The green area is Waterloo. And just so happens that of our 4 elementary schools, we have 2 smaller elementary schools and 2 larger elementary schools. So when I mention that we're kind of out of balance, it's from the standpoint of we have 2 smaller elementary schools that are out of balance and 2 larger elementary schools that are out of balance. We will never achieve balance across all 4 elementary schools because the 4 elementary schools weren't built or designed to serve the same number of students. So the design capacity of each of the 4 elementary schools are different. Waterloo and Country Meadow are essentially the same in the functional capacity of the buildings, and Watson and McKinney-Harrison are essentially the same. So if you think about it that way, 2 smaller schools, 2 larger schools, that helps with understanding the why behind doing this. The orange area, Watson is the largest in enrollment, smallest in area. So if you look at the orange area, southern portion of Auburn, it is sent up the west edge of the mobile home park, and then we call this out the campus. Okay? These boundary lines were drawn, it's been longer than I've been here since they were really drawn to what they currently look like today. 20 years ago, Country Meadow was built. Fairfield and Ashley Elementaries were closed. So that's the last time the northern part of our district went through any kind of redistricting because it was a new building that was kind of coming into operation, 2 smaller, very old buildings kind of going out of operation. But in the time I've been here, I can't tell you the history of why. There's a lot of different stories about why things are drawn like they're drawn now, but it was long before I've been here, and again, I've been here 25 years. This purple is McKinney-Harrison, that's permanent. So So option A and option B that you have, the two-sided, if you've gone online and you've looked, and people have been acutely aware of option A and B, so I get that. You're looking at your address, you're looking at where you live, you're looking at where your kids attend school. What will option A do? What will option B do? I understand that. Those are the two options that, the question that came up earlier in one of the other meetings. Who came up with these options? Did you come up with these options? I didn't come up with the options. We hired a demographer, Jerry McKibben, who has done a lot of work for the district over the years. He does our demographic studies every 5 years. We have him come in and kind of do a study for budgeting purposes on, which direction is the district going in? Are we increasing enrollment? Increase, decrease? Where is the population? Where can we expect more growth than less growth? And so part of what he does as well, in addition to the demographic studies for us, he's able to take all that information and then provide a couple different options for us moving forward to consider. And I'll talk a little about that. That's current, and then you have options of A and B, and you see what that does in your world. So I mentioned the two smaller elementary schools, the two larger elementary schools. So I'm not sure you can see the numbers necessarily, but Watson and McKinney, our current enrollment, and this is our fall count. If you go on the district, if you go on the Department of Ed website, it's compass.doe.in.gov. You can get official counts for enrollment of any school in the state of Indiana. And so elementary staff members and principals can tell you that these numbers fluctuate quite a bit. It's an ebb and flow. And a lot of times kids just move within our district. So a Waterloo kid moves to Country Meadow, and two Country Meadow kids moves to McKinney, and so on. So the enrollment counts that we get through the DOE, Watson's about 100 more students than McKinney Harrison right now. And what that does at the district level, when you have resources available, and what are those resources? Well, think of those are your classroom teachers. Those are supplies and programming that you make available for students. Those are finite. You have a budget, you work from it, and you have to make do with what you have. And so when there are imbalances, it creates hardships, or it becomes extremely difficult to divvy up those resources in an equitable manner between two larger schools, two smaller schools. And I'll go into some other reasons how I can demonstrate that for you on what those imbalances are. Our smaller schools, Waterloo and Country Meadow. Waterloo has 320 students, but 96 of them, almost 100 of them, are preschoolers. Our federal preschool program that is located at Waterloo, that we're looking to move to each one of our elementary schools. We'll talk more about that in just a minute. So the second number there you can see, when Jerry did our demographer, we gave him a task. What can you do to help create balance in the district? And there's two things that we want you to look at. Look at enrollment, and then as a secondary factor, look at the socioeconomic status, our free reduced lunch, our poverty rate. Our current poverty rate of our four buildings, 39% Watson, 44, we had almost 67 in Waterloo, 47 in Country Meadow. That fluctuates too, but typically Waterloo is higher in free reduced lunch, more than not, than the other three districts. So when Jerry took on the challenge to look at enrollment and look at socioeconomic, he quickly came back and said, Steve, there's really no way. I've got to focus on the balance of enrollment, because how your socioeconomic population is spread throughout the district, there's no way, unless you're looking to carve out bits and pieces throughout the entire district and create a district boundary map that would just be totally inefficient, and it would drive your bus transportation director absolutely nuts. So trying to balance both enrollment and socioeconomic wasn't going to be a possibility. We could get closer than what we are currently, but the focus for Jerry then became more about enrollment than socioeconomic. Some of the other reasons or the purpose behind this, other than the imbalance. The question has come up, what do you hope to save? So if you're doing this, so what's that dollar amount? What are you looking to save? And I'll be 100% honest. I can't put a dollar amount on something that is extremely fluid. All right? And what I mean by that is, when you have a redistricting project that you're looking at, we have so many students that are inter-district transfer request students. We have so many students that are out-of-district transfer students. And then depending on which option or which version of that option is chosen, you really won't know the dollars and cents that you're able to save until you actually put it in place, and then you can run the numbers. But if you look at option A and option B, I think the fourth bullet there, more efficient use of transportation resources. I think even to the untrained eye, you can see that there are much more efficient ways of running our transportation through options A and B, and one of them probably works better from a transportation standpoint than the other. Right now, we have buses that pass each other. From an efficiency standpoint, we're not maximizing the resources. So redistricting isn't happening because of transportation. It's happening because of imbalance. But if we can gain efficiencies in our transportation routing, then it would behoove us not to look at that as well. So we are taking a close look at that in the process. One of the things that we explored doing was closing one of our elementary schools. Again, this has been a conversation that we've had at the district level for probably 2 years. It's going downward enrollment. What are we going to do? We're more imbalanced. So we did explore closing an elementary school. We decided not to. We decided that wasn't feasible because we would create capacity issues at the other 3 schools. Basically, too many kids to filter out to the other 3 schools. And then we'd be looking at a building project of some sort down the line to address capacity issues. And then there's no room for growth. Then I'm potentially turning away kids, more kids for inter-district transfer requests or out-of-district transfer requests. So we decided, quite frankly, to close an elementary school, to shut an elementary school down, I think is far worse than redistricting. I think the impact that it has on the district, but on the community as a whole, where that elementary school exists, the one that might be closed down, would just be disastrous. And I think as a district, we have an obligation to keep our 4 elementary schools open and operating, and I think we can do so and expand the opportunities for our kids in the process. This is one that I haven't mentioned yet. The classroom sizes. The parents are acutely aware. I've discovered that parents are acutely aware of classroom sizes. We do have an imbalance of classroom sizes across the district, and it doesn't matter if you're a small school or a large school. You could travel to a school and there's 18 students in a classroom. You could travel down the hallway and there's 31 students in another classroom in the same school. You could drive to all 4 buildings and see a reference of that. Is that the ideal scenario? No. I mean, I'd love to have 15 students in every class. Right, teachers? I see some teachers here. Hey, let's do that. But it's not feasible, but what you want to do, you want to create more balance in classroom sizes. I will tell you, a teacher that has 18 students and a teacher that has 31, you might be thinking that you're doing the math, 13 more kids. Teachers are phenomenal. They get the job done. Their data supports it. The teachers with larger class sizes, there's really nothing in the data that would tell you that they have more students than someone else because they work as hard as it takes to get the job done and to ensure the kids grow. I firmly believe that. We have wonderful teachers, but it is something that I worry about as a superintendent. You worry about as a parent, because I probably have talked to some of you before in the past about class sizes. I know I did when I was at Watson. I know I had some parents talk to me about class size at Watson, and I would assure you that the teachers will make it happen regardless of having a little bit bigger class. And I still think that is the case. But if we're able to balance out the class sizes, I think we all benefit from that. I think teachers, students, parents, we can all benefit from it. This also then allows us for growth. This redistricting, the balancing, will allow for us to continue to grow as a district, and our demographer does believe that we're in that, we've kind of hit the trough, and we should look for that upward trend. Just driving through my neighborhood, I've seen houses being constructed all over the place. I don't know what it's like where you live, but if that's any indication, we're hoping that we're going to start building back up enrollment. Out-of-district transfer requests are up, which is an encouraging sign too, because as a district, as a school, you feel like you're doing something right, and the people that don't even live there want to be a part of it. Let's go to the next slide. I think we kind of, we've seen the students that could be impacted from this. You probably wouldn't be here if you didn't have a child or more who potentially might be impacted from this. So what parents want to know, are there inter-district transfer requests? Yes, there will be an application process for inter-district transfer requests. So what will be considered? Watson, we're in Watson right here, we have over 100 students who are inter-district transfer requests approved for Watson Elementary as it currently sits right now. Okay? McKinney has about the same. So what's happened over time is inter-district transfer requests were approved for child care. And so we definitely, let me back up. Some people have provided feedback that have said, why don't you just make the kids who live in the attendance zone where they live go to the school where they live? Don't approve any inter-district transfer requests. Wholeheartedly, I just don't believe that's the proper way to look at it. We have to work with parents who have child care needs and have all these other needs that you might have to be able to apply for an inter-district transfer request. I want to be able to honor those needs and work with families if there's space in the school that you're requesting, and if it's a legitimate reason why you want to do so. So we're looking at inter-district transfer requests, we're looking at child care. There will be a prioritized list of the order in which those requests will be approved. We haven't developed, we've got a list. I'm not going to throw a list up on the screen because it would be in some order. And I don't have it here. So we're collecting feedback from parents on all those types of things. Whether it's child care, whether the child is a foster child, whether the student is homeless, whether you've made a decision because you really like to being at Watson because of IB, because of International Baccalaureate, the branding that they're doing at Watson, or the branding, the Leader in Me in Country Meadow, project-based learning in Waterloo. We started the branding in our elementary schools about 4 or 5 years ago. We want to honor the fact that we've allowed parents to make choices of choosing a school based on the branding because you believe that branding is best for your child. So those are some things that we're also considering. And there are others. There are other items on that list. And if you have questions about that, we can talk about that. Next steps, obviously, the district maps are the starting point. You know, it starts the conversation, it gets feedback. We do know that we have to move down the road to do something. We have to get the balance that we're looking for so that we can more efficiently use the precious resources that we have afforded to us. The enrollment process, those of you who have been with DeKalb Central know that we use an online enrollment process. And so that process will begin again for us in April. So whatever, we need to make a decision by March. In the March, I will take a recommendation to the school board in March. It won't go in February because I don't think we'll be there yet. I can't tell you what that recommendation is going to be because I don't know what it's going to be yet. Again, parents are providing great feedback, which is awesome. I really have appreciated everything that we've received. We know the online enrollment process will be the way in which you'll enroll your child, updating your information. and that will start the interdistrict application process, that will start the out-of-district transportation or application process, and so on. And so we've had the online enrollment process for about 3 or 4 years now. So if you've done it in the past, it's not going to change a lot. There'll be a few more features added to it. I will pay attention to the pre-reduced lunch status. That's something that building leaders and leadership tend to pay more attention to than the general public. Special ed programming, we do have some special ed programming. Waterloo has functional skills students, special needs students who come from across the county, not just DeKalb Central, but Garrett and Eastside as well. So those programs are not being affected by redistricting. They're students with individualized education plans or special needs students, and they're protected through processes that are supported through their case conferences. And so if a case conference decision made a change in their placement, that's what would drive their change. But as far as where functional skills will be located, kindergarten and 5th grade will remain at Waterloo Elementary, just as our early intervention, our special needs preschool class is located at Country Meadow. And again, those are special needs students protected by federal and Indiana law for special needs students and their IEP. And so if there are changes in their placement, that will happen because of the case conference decision, not because of mine. Student transfers, again. We're exploring what that priority list is going to look like. Okay, so there is student transfers. If you're an inter-district transfer student and you can provide transportation, that's something you may want to look into if there is room. What I mean by room, we have to take a look at the schools. If there's room in the grade level, if the student that wants the transfer request has had good attendance, you'll hear me say a student in good standing. What do I mean by that? The student had good attendance. If the student was an inter-district transfer student this year and missed 35 days of school, I'm probably not going to approve that inter-district transfer request because they're not getting to school. So you might have that student attend their home school, and then they have the bus available to them for morning and afternoon to make sure they have transportation to and from school. Also, verified child care. It's amazing the number of addresses that I'm looking at that maybe don't jive with child care, or they may not be residences that as I'm starting to filter through all my current transfer requests so I can get an understanding in my mind how many students we're talking about. I'm left with a lot of question marks on verification. I'm not sure what that looks like yet, but when it comes to child care and things like that, I think of verification of that. There'll be more to come on that. Timeline, I mentioned briefly, a decision to the board, recommendation in March. I want to be able to share that out with our community before it ever goes to a board meeting for approval, so that you'll know what's going to be taken to the board. Transition process. Depending on when that happens, we'll make sure that we work with families some students are going to be attending different schools. We know that. All students will have new teachers next year in the elementary because as students advance, they'll all have new teachers. Some new teachers may be in new buildings as well. And I know it's a hard pill to swallow for some of us right now, and I get that. I understand that. But we're here to help, and I've told people in my other meetings, 2 weeks into the next school year is what I look at. Because I truly believe kids are resilient. I believe kids can bounce back from things. As parents, we probably have a hard time moving past something that our kids do that's affecting them. And I believe two weeks into the school year, kids are resilient. They may not even remember that they had attended another school. We have 4 fabulous schools. I truly, honestly believe that. And I think kids will be fine in any of our 4 schools. We have great staff in any of our schools. Transportation is just, that will drive part of the decision-making process on the decision we make. Again, reference material on where you can find this information. We'll post this video, and then we'll post separately our Q&A from now till the end. So I think that is it. Anyone want to talk about it? make any calls on delay for tomorrow yet. I'm aware of winter weather advisory, 2 to 5 inches. It's going to start sometime 9, 10 maybe tonight. So if you hear my voice in the morning, something to be aware of. Questions?
Hey Steve, can I provide a point of clarification?
Yes, sir.
Just for anybody who's fact checking, past 2 meetings, if anybody's been at that one, I've thrown out an estimate when Steve asked me of $6,500 per kid. Steve, I think you heard him say $6,800. I was actually going to correct him. I looked it up before the meeting started. It's actually $6,200. So I wish you got $6,800.
Wishful thinking. Oh.
Just for anybody who's back.
Let's remember that for Wednesday. Questions, yes, sir?
Any kids that get accepted in the interdistrict transfer this next year, are we grandfathered in then, or do we have to worry about this further down the road? That
We want to deal with this one time, all right? We want to deal with this one time, so when the decision is made for redistricting and the ultimate decision on what map we're going with, what version of whatever map, right now we're looking at A and B, we're looking to do it one time. As a district, you don't ever want to go through redistricting, but at times there's a need for a reset or a rebalance, and that's where we're at right now. We want to put you through that. We don't want to put you through this at all, but if we do one time.
What about the siblings? Like younger siblings that aren't together?
Yeah. So the question on siblings, and so when we think about, there's a couple different ways to look at that. So siblings that haven't started yet, but you have
One on interdistrict.
Yeah, you have one on interdistrict transfer, they're attending, and that child might even progress through before the younger child even starts. Or could. I mean, that could be a situation. In your situation, it may not be. We are looking at the children of those in interdistrict on the priority list of where they fit, and once they're approved, as long as they stay in good standing, we would want to continue to allow them to stay in that school. Okay? Again, we'll have a complete list of what that looks like. And we just don't feel we're ready to share that because we don't think we've heard all the different options or special considerations that might be out there. You guys have been very helpful in that. Other questions?
What's the class size difference with these options?
I can't
You might
tell you what they are
have
because...
to repeat questions.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. The question is, what would the class sizes be with option A or option B? I mentioned before that it's very fluid because it will all depend upon interdistrict, out-of-district transfers. So I want to tell you that I don't ever want class size. Typically, we want smaller class sizes in kindergarten, and then we would gradually be okay increasing those. We never want to be over 30 in any grade. But I can tell you that's not the case right now. And so by going through interdistrict transfers and placing them and then placing out-of-district transfers, I will have a capability then, knowing what my numbers are, if I don't have room at Watson, I may have room in Country Meadow. And so when you go through the online enrollment process, if you're not a district transfer student, you might list your first priority, your second priority, your third priority, just so that if there's not room, because I'm going to give priority to the kids who live within the attendance zone, and then students who live within the district, and then out of district. That makes sense. Good question. Yes, sir.
You talked about working with the transfer students coming in. My concern is when we moved here, we chose where we live strictly on school system. Specifically for grade school and high school. We live in any county that
did everyone hear that?
And that was the founding factor.
Right. It wasn't for that reason. I appreciate what you're saying, and I know other feedback that I've received. I chose this house because it was within the McKinney-Harrison district or the Watson district, or I'm afraid now that my property value is going to decline. All valid, relevant points of concern And when you redistrict, I know there's going to be some of that. And I don't know what else to say other than I appreciate you saying that, and I'm sure others feel the same to some capacity. But at the end of the day, I've got to do something that I feel is best for the future of this district. And so that's all I can say in response to that. Yep.
So, since the inner and out of district transfer system is a big part of everything,
Yes.
are you going to decide between the options and look at that, or do you have to look at all of the transfer situations before you decide?
I know all of the, right now, I've got the list of everybody that's transferred right now.
Yeah. So I don't for our students, I don't have any transfer students, so I'm just waiting on final opinion because
Oh.
I go one way with anyone with me.
Understand?
So as much as I appreciate transfer, people are really affecting me.
Okay.
So what is the PTA, I'm just excited between,
There'll be a decision made March 17th.
I thought it was just about
You're welcome. Yes.
For those of us that do have inter-district transfers due to childcare,
Yes.
is that, I mean, how will we know, I guess how are we gonna know whether we're approved or not? I mean, if we wait till the next school system, and then we scram, or full year, we scram and kind of another babysitter that's gonna get approved?
Good question. The question is regarding childcare, and if you're putting in for an inter-district transfer, when can you expect to be approved? Because obviously, fall of 17 will be here soon. Online enrollment starts in early April, tentatively. At some point, when you know the date, all inter-district, out-of-district transfers would have to be in the system. I would have some cutoff date, and I would probably say it's going to be May-ish, mid-May, and then I'll have the cutoff date, and I'll take all that have been applied for an inter-district, out-of-district, and make those placements. Anyone enrolling after that date will just be considered on a case-by-case basis, and as room exists. Does that help? Maybe?
Yeah, just, the babysitter situation in this is easy to get into childcare, so having something that's already set and being in fear of then having to try to find somewhere else is, I don't want to wait till, last minute to try to throw my kids somewhere because that's their school district and not where I'm going.
I appreciate that. I understand. And Ms. Vaughn is capturing notes for us so that make sure that we're capturing everything we share here, not only by video, but we have a written script of that as well, so we can update our FAQ. Other questions? And don't forget, you do have opportunities to meet with any one of us after the meeting and share in any capacity that you need to. Yes?
Are inter-district transfers going to get priority over out-of-district transfers?
Are inter-district transfer requests going to get priority over out-of-district? Yes. And I'll say with one exception, and that's for staff members, children. That's a decision that I feel very strongly about, that I will approve staff members' children prior to. I just think that's the right thing to do. As staff members, as valuable staff members, and that's not just teachers' children, but all staff members' children. Yes, sir.
That means that are you hiring?
You can access. Cindy's loving that because we do have shortages in different areas. Go on our district website, calcentral.net, and you will see any postings that we have. Substitute those now. Other questions? Yes.
So I didn't see it here, but on the website there was some screens that showed the numbers to do that if we change plan A versus plan B. So I guess two questions. One, how is the decision going to be made between plan A and plan B? And then the second question would be in plan B, it looks like between Harrison and Watson, you have a lot of students changing for not a lot of enrollment difference. So why have over 300 families world dropped by over to only have 10 or 15 enrollment difference between schools?
So a couple things to keep in mind. Those numbers include fifth graders. That's part of that calculation. Also, depending on options A or B, depending on how they're drawn, certain families that are currently inter-district transfer students would no longer be. inter-district transfer students, if that makes sense. Okay? And ultimately, if you think about what we're looking for with our balancing, part of that is transportation. And so trying to find the most efficient way to balance our transportation. And it might become something where if parents are able to transport, and we do have a lot of kids going each way. I kind of referenced that earlier, where we do have a lot of students who kind of cross each other or pass each other as they live in Watson, go to McKinney, live in McKinney, go to Watson. And so cleaning up that process through this whole redistricting is going to be helpful for me as well.
It just seems like the number, 300 plus families being adjusted doesn't really match the original comments, and that we're doing this sort of even out of but really what can we do.
I think
So that's the first question.
there's a lot of
How
fluid.
the decisions you made between A and B?
Yeah.
Will it be any impact, I mean,
Yeah,
Seriously, like how,
Well-
it's like,
what we're doing by having these community
feedback, who makes all
Garner,
the decisions?
I take a recommendation to our school board.
You do it, so you make all the decisions.
I take a recommendation to our school board.
Well,
Yep. And of course, I have a team that I work with closely.
but, so you're having these meetings, you're having this feedback, but really you don't have like a vote per se. I'm just saying,
Correct.
like, we don't really have one. We have our own, we do it.
Right.
Like, all the parents do is vote for that person, and, you know, just to give the feedback that way.
I'm not planning on taking a vote. I think there's a lot more, there's a lot of information to take in and to process. And so, that's what my team and myself will be doing, to take the best recommendations to the board. And everyone has their own personal reasons of why they might go for A over B. And I understand that. That's why I wanted to make myself and my team available to hear your comments and your feedback. Other questions?
At this point in time, if you had to make a recommendation, are you thinking A or
I'm not Am I leaning toward one or the other? I'm not leaning toward the other at this time. Too early to tell. Other questions, comments? Yes.
Was their IEP affected? Is there already in the school that their house is already making
Will their
IEP?
be affected? The only thing in an IEP, will their IEP be affected? A student with an individual education plan, maybe the only thing that would be an addendum is just changing the school of seven. Okay? But the programming, if they're in functional skills at Waterloo or early intervention at Country Meadow, wouldn't change there. If they're a special needs student, their school could change. Other questions? Yes, sir.
How many out of district transfers do you have and how many do you plan to keep?
I'll approve as many as we have space to approve while maintaining balance in our 4 elementary schools. So that number is really fluid. It depends upon how many we start. In our elementary environment, we have about, I'd say, 150 transfer requests, and that might be approval for multiple children. Yes.
If you have room for one grade of a child,
Yes.
different age kids,
Yeah.
you would make them go to different schools.
If I couldn't have, well,
Like if you had room.
So-
for
so I had a
one grade,
parent-
but not in kindergarten.
so I would approve for one.
I got it.
I couldn't approve for the other because there's not space.
Right.
The parent then would have to make the decision, do I send my one child? That school has been approved, but my other one may end up in their attendance zone. Yes?
If you approve for an out-of-district, like future siblings,
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what they asked. I thought they said inter-district, but, I mean, are we gonna have to worry about this?
Well, you'll always apply for out-of-district and
Correct.
inter-district. I mean, you'll just re-up each year. We don't want to put you through this process more than once, okay? So out-of-district is if you have another child coming in that's
It's
out-of-district.
not guaranteed that that child would get in. It's gonna be if there's room when that child gets to that point.
I can't make a guarantee on that because as an out-of-district student, if there's not room, I can't make room in a certain building. inter-district, they live within the boundaries of DeKalb Central Schools, and I'm bound to allow any student to attend. And more than likely, with an out-of-district, if there's not room in one school, there's probably room in others. I would love to tell you that yes, that's guaranteed, but I can't think that.
Do you think you'll be able to accommodate most of the requests that you have now? I know probably it's going to be the same, but I mean, do you think you're going to have to tell kids they can leave the district?
I think I will be able to approve any out-of-district transfer that gets submitted.
Just not the,
It may not be the first priority, but I'm confident when I say that I believe we have room to grow from out-of-district transfers.
Do you have a target number for the 4 elementary schools you're trying to hit? Because right now you've got 100, give or take some inter-district, and then plus out-of-district on top of that.
Right.
Basically, that seems to be the issue. Because the redistricting doesn't look like it's a whole lot of demographic change. Because you talk transportation, but that seems to be the major issue. Has phasing an option, or is it pretty much A or B?
So the question is, if I understand it right, when you say phase in,
Correct.
So what-
Phasing in over like a 5-year plan, is that then discuss something to where we start from?
we've had some feedback from parents that have asked for, okay, is this something that's going to happen fall of 17? Or is there an opportunity for a phase-in or a pause? We're looking at everything. It should have no effect on middle school, since we just have one middle school, all 4 of our elementaries flow into the middle school. Yeah, we should be good. We've got room at the middle school, so if you know any middle school kids that want to out of district transfer, we're probably going to be good. Correct. Correct. We're considering all options at this point.
Will that also be on our system?
Yeah.
So the way the health system plan is when it starts.
And the reason why, we've got enrollment that we have to be sensitive to. So again, it's taking all the feedback, it's really looking at doing what's best for the district moving forward. Also considering what we're hearing from our students. Yep. Yes.
If I have to enroll by another date, I don't know where I'm going to be, which district I was in when I went. And I already transferred over, so this could totally show up. Where I would be looking for not having requested taken on. So how are you doing?
Well, we can talk after the meeting, so I get some specifics and see where you're at, so I can talk more specifically. But I mean, the process will be, the online enrollment process will take place, there'll be a cutoff. It can be based off of a purchase of a home, you're not yet moved, but if you can provide documentation that you are moving into that house, say, purchase agreement, something, we work with parents that way. And we can be assured that you're actually moving to that location. Other questions? Yes, sir.
How much of any impact does the intra-district transfer have on transportation costs? Is there
I really don't, again, until we know, inter-district transfer requests affect how many students you're able to get. Like, my transportation director knows where all the kids live. Right? But not knowing how many kids are brought by their parents and not knowing how many kids will be inter-district transfer requests, that determines how many kids you can put on that bus and how many buses you have to send on that route. Do we send 4 buses into Westridge? Do we send 2 buses into Westridge? So hard to put impossible to put a hard number on that until we get to the enrollment time, when then we know what parents, what they're approved for, what their plans are for after, childcare and things like that. But we're confident, either map or A, we could be much more efficient with our transportation options. Yes, sir.
Is there any kind of preliminary cost there, savings, or is this?
I don't have a number I could even think to share with you right now. Sir.
Is the problem throughout all 4 districts in all grades, or is there a problem?
I think pieces of the reason exist in all 4 elementary schools when you talk about such as transportation routing, when you talk about Classroom size certainly is something that exists throughout the elementary environment. That affects the number of teachers I have, the number of classrooms I have available. So I would say yes, it's something that exists throughout the entire district. Different levels, I will tell you. Other questions, concerns, feedback? I want to thank you for your time, and see you Wednesday if you plan on being in Kenny. Access the resources through the internet, and I will be communicating out in short weeks. Thank you for being here tonight.